She was crying. Her hair was a tangled mess, mascara streaking down her face in dark, uneven lines. Her voice trembled as she pleaded. Ethan, I was wrong. Please help me. I stood there, watching her crumble, the weight of her own actions finally crashing down. Her hands clutched at my sleeve, desperate, shaking. But all I could feel was a quiet, almost eerie sense of detachment. The woman in front of me wasn't the same person I had loved. Or maybe she had been this way all along, and I had just been too blind to see it. I glanced down at the crumpled envelope in her trembling hands, the very evidence she had meticulously gathered to manipulate and control others. Now, it had turned against her, unraveling everything she had built on deceit. Her fingers clutched the paper tightly, knuckles white, as if holding onto it could somehow undo the damage. But the truth was out, and no amount of desperation could change that. The very weapon she had wielded so skillfully had finally come back to destroy her. I let out a faint chuckle, a cold, detached smirk tugging at the corner of my lips. With the tip of my shoe, I nudged a loose sheet of paper toward her, watching as it fluttered to the ground at her feet. Go ahead, I said, my voice calm, almost amused. Destroy yourself. Her breath hitched, eyes darting between me and the damning evidence scattered before her. For the first time, the predator looked truly afraid. I am Ethan, just an ordinary guy living what I once thought was a stable, predictable life. I had a steady job, a comfortable routine, and for the past 3 years, a relationship that I believed was built on trust, love, and understanding. Sienna and I had been together long enough that I had stopped questioning things. I thought we were solid, that we had a future. She was the kind of woman who could light up a room with her charm, effortlessly drawing people in. I had fallen for her confidence, for the way she always seemed so sure of herself, so in control. I trusted her, perhaps more than I should have. I never doubted her loyalty, never once considered the possibility that the person I had shared my life with for years might have been hiding something from me. But life has a way of revealing the truth in the cruelest ways. In hindsight, the signs had been there all along, small cracks in the foundation I had ignored, dismissed as nothing. Now, standing here, looking at the mess she had created, I wondered how I had ever been so blind. Things started to change when Sienna began growing distant. At first, it was subtle, small shifts in her routine that didn't seem like much on their own but, over time, became impossible to ignore. She started coming home later than usual, often with vague explanations about work running late or last-minute meetings. At first, I didn't question it. She had a demanding job, and I understood that sometimes deadlines and responsibilities didn't fit neatly into a 9-to-5 schedule. But then it became a pattern. Nights stretched longer. Excuses grew thinner. And something about the way she said, "Don't wait up," felt less like reassurance and more like a warning. Then came the perfume. A scent I didn't recognize, something rich, floral, expensive. The first time I noticed it, I assumed she had just switched brands, maybe picked up something new on a whim. But the scent lingered on her skin, on her clothes, every night she came home late. Not long after, I started seeing new dresses in her wardrobe. Elegant, form-fitting, the kind of outfits that turned heads. Yet, strangely, I never saw her wear them. Whenever we went out together, she stuck to her usual style, casual, comfortable. But these new clothes? They weren't for me. I remember the first time I asked, "That's new. When did you get it?" She barely glanced up, brushing off the question with a quick, "Just something I picked up on sale." But I knew better. I just didn't want to admit it yet. Then there was her phone. It became an extension of her hand, never more than an arm's length away. At first, I thought nothing of it. Everyone was glued to their screens these days. But then, subtle things started standing out. She used to leave it lying around the apartment, face up on the coffee table or kitchen counter. Now she kept it close, slipping it into her pocket the moment I entered the room. When a notification popped up, she'd glance at it quickly, tilting the screen away from me before locking it just as fast. There were moments, fleeting but telling, where I'd walk into the room, and she'd instinctively turn her body, shielding the phone from view. Other times, I'd hear the soft murmur of her voice from another room, only for her to lower it the second she noticed me. "Just work stuff," she'd say when I asked. But work had never made her act like this before. One evening, as she stood by the kitchen counter, scrolling through her phone, I walked up behind her and wrapped my arms around her waist, something I had done countless times before. But this time, she jerked away, her entire body stiffening as if I were a stranger. She turned, eyes wide for just a fraction of a second before forcing a nervous laugh. "You scared me," she said, brushing me off like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. The reaction was too sharp, too unnatural. It lingered in my mind long after she had moved on, pretending like it never happened. At the time, I didn't think much of it. But looking back now, I should have seen it for what it was, a sign, clear as day, that something was already broken, One night, I was sitting on the couch, absent-mindedly folding laundry while Sienna was in the shower. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the bathroom fan. It was one of those rare moments where I let my mind drift, trying to shake off the unease that had been growing inside me for weeks. Then, out of the corner of my eye, her phone lit up on the coffee table. It was just for a second, a quick glow before the screen dimmed again. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. I wasn't the type to check her phone, and I had never had a reason to. But something instinctual made me glance over. What I saw made my stomach drop. "Last night was amazing, can't wait for next time." From someone named D. I sat there, frozen, the words burning into my brain. My fingers clenched the fabric in my lap, knuckles white, but I didn't move. I just stared at the screen, waiting for it to disappear, as if that might somehow make it less real. For a second, my mind tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe D. was just a friend, someone she worked with. But the message, the tone, the heart emoji, it didn't leave much room for doubt. And then it hit me. All those late nights at work. The new perfume. The sudden way she had started pulling away from me without explanation. It was never work. It was him. I didn't check her phone right away. As much as my instincts screamed at me to grab it, to scroll through her messages and dig up the truth, I held back. Not because I didn't want to know, but because I wanted her to reveal it herself. Confronting her now, armed with nothing but a single message, would give her the chance to lie, to twist the story, to make me look like the insecure, paranoid boyfriend. No, I needed more. I needed to see how far she would go, how long she would keep up the act. So I sat there, my heart pounding, my jaw clenched, and I waited. Waited for her to walk into the room, for her to pick up her phone, for the moment she would unknowingly give herself away. When she walked through the door that night, I was already waiting. I sat on the couch, unmoving, my hands clasped together as if holding myself back. My mind had been running in circles for the past hour, but now, in this moment, I felt eerily calm. She dropped her bag by the door, slipping off her heels with a tired sigh. "Hey," she said casually, like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't just spent the night wrapped up in someone else's arms. I stood up. "D is who?" Her hand froze mid-motion as she reached for her phone on the counter. Slowly, she looked up at me. Our eyes met, and for the briefest second, I saw it, the flicker of recognition, the calculation, the instant shift from casual to guarded. She didn't ask, "What are you talking about?" She didn't act confused. No, the first thing she did was hesitate. And that told me everything I needed to know. It was a moment I would never forget. She froze for half a second, just long enough for me to see the gears turning in her head. Then, to my disbelief, she smiled. Not a nervous smile, not an apologetic one, but something else entirely. It was calm. Confident. Almost amused. Like she had been waiting for this, like she had been rehearsing this conversation in her head, preparing for the inevitable. As if catching her wasn't a disaster but a game, one she had been playing far longer than I had realized. "Oh, so you finally figured it out." Her voice was light, almost playful, as if I had just solved a riddle she had been waiting for me to crack. She tilted her head slightly, watching me, measuring my reaction. "Dominic, my boss." She said his name slowly, deliberately, like it was supposed to mean something. Then, with a smirk curling at the corner of her lips, she added, "And yes, I've been sleeping with him." There was no hesitation. No guilt. No shame. Just pride. There wasn't a hint of remorse. Not a single apology. Just that same smug, condescending smile, like she was proud of what she had done, as if she had won some unspoken game. She took a step closer, tilting her head, eyes gleaming with something that made my stomach turn. "Did you really think I could stay with a dreamer like you forever?" Her voice was laced with mockery, each word meant to cut deep. "Dominic is a real man. He knows what he wants. He doesn't waste his time on childish fantasies." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, the flicker of regret, anything that resembled the woman I thought I knew. But there was nothing. Just cold certainty. But the biggest shock wasn't her betrayal. It was theirs. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone, heart hammering in my chest. I opened the group chat, the same one we had used for years, filled with inside jokes, weekend plans, and memories I thought meant something. I typed out a single message. "Did you know?" The response came almost immediately. "Jonah. Bro, you're a great guy, but maybe this is for the best. Sienna deserves someone more ambitious, you know?" My blood ran cold. Then Lena. "We didn't want to hurt you, Ethan. But maybe this is the wake-up call you need." A wake-up call. Like I was the problem. Like this was somehow my fault. I gripped my phone so tightly my fingers ached. The betrayal cut deeper than Sienna's words ever could. These were the people I had trusted the most, the ones I thought would always have my back. But just like her, they had already chosen their side. You're a good guy, but Sienna needs someone more established. Don't take it personally. I stared at the message, rereading it as if my brain couldn't process the words. My fingers hovered over the screen, frozen, unable to type a response. More established? Like I was some underachieving nobody? Like Sienna had simply leveled up, and I was the dead weight she had to shed? Before I could even breathe, another message popped up. Maybe this is the lesson you needed, Ethan. A lesson. As if being lied to, cheated on, and discarded like an afterthought was some kind of moral revelation I should be grateful for. As if watching the person I had loved for 3 years spit in my face was meant to make me a better person. I could feel my pulse in my ears. My fingers curled so tightly around my phone that I thought it might crack. The room felt suffocating, the air thick with something I couldn't name. These were my friends. The people I had trusted the most, the ones who had been there through every high and low. The ones I had believed would stand by me, no matter what. And yet here they were. Not just excusing what she had done. Not just siding with her. But acting like I was the one who needed to change. For the first time, I wasn't just angry. I wasn't just hurt. I was awake. At that moment, I didn't feel anger. I didn't explode. I didn't demand explanations. I didn't waste my breath trying to argue with people who had already made up their minds. Instead, I laughed. A quiet, almost amused chuckle that felt foreign even to me. It wasn't joy, wasn't relief, just a realization so absurd that I couldn't help but find it funny. I had spent years believing these people were my friends. That Sienna was my future. That loyalty meant something. And now, standing here, watching it all unravel, I saw the truth so clearly that it was almost laughable. Without another word, I grabbed my keys. Walked past Sienna, past the life I had once thought was mine. And I left. I walked out of that apartment, and never looked back. The night air was crisp, stinging against my skin as I gripped my keys and headed for my car. My mind felt strangely blank, not clouded with rage or heartbreak, just empty. Like my brain was still trying to process the weight of everything that had just happened. I drove for miles without a destination, letting the city lights blur past me. I wasn't ready to go home, not that I had a home anymore. That place wasn't mine. It never really had been. Eventually, I pulled into the parking lot of a rundown motel on the outskirts of town. The neon vacancy sign flickered above the office, buzzing faintly in the silence. It wasn't much, just a place to sleep, to be alone, to think. I checked in, took the key, and stepped into a room that smelled like cheap air freshener and forgotten dreams. The walls were a dull beige, the furniture old but functional. A single lamp cast a dim glow over the bed and the rickety nightstand. I dropped my bag on the floor, sank onto the mattress, and finally, allowed myself to exhale. No texts. No calls. No betrayals waiting just around the corner. Just silence. After 2 days of complete silence, I finally turned my phone back on. The screen lit up instantly, vibrating non-stop as notification after notification flooded in. 42 missed calls. 60 unread messages. Almost all of them from Sienna. Her name filled my screen in an endless stream of desperate attempts to reach me. First, it was casual. Ethan, we need to talk. Then, apologetic. Please, just hear me out. Then, manipulative. Ignoring me won't change anything. The timestamps told a story of their own. Messages sent in the middle of the night. Calls made at random hours, sometimes minutes apart. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over her name. For the first time in years, she was the one waiting for me. And for the first time, I didn't feel the need to answer. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened my social media, half expecting nothing, half expecting everything. And there it was. Post after post, carefully crafted and laced with just enough selective truth to make me look like the villain. Sienna had been busy. According to her, I was controlling, jealous, and emotionally abusive, the insecure boyfriend who couldn't handle her success, who constantly monitored her, who never let her breathe. Comments flooded in beneath her posts. You deserve better, Queen. I'm so sorry you went through this. Stay strong, some men just can't handle a powerful woman. People who didn't even know me were sympathizing with her, praising her for escaping a toxic relationship. And the worst part? Some of my own friends had liked her posts, even commented their support. I let out a breath. Not of anger. Not even of shock. Just understanding. This wasn't about me. It never was. It was about control. The same way she had controlled the narrative of our relationship, she was now controlling the way it ended. And I refused to play along. Just as I was processing the disaster unfolding on social media, another notification appeared, this time, from my work email. Subject, reminder, professional conduct in the workplace. I clicked it open, already sensing where this was going. Dear Ethan, we would like to remind all employees of the importance of maintaining a respectful and professional environment. Recent concerns have been raised regarding interactions that may not align with company values. If you have any questions, please reach out to HR. Best. HR department. There it was. No names. No direct accusations. Just a thinly veiled warning, carefully worded to imply guilt without stating it outright. I exhaled slowly, my grip tightening around the phone. She had taken it beyond social media. Beyond our personal lives. She was coming for my job. And if I didn't handle this carefully, she might actually succeed. Just as I was about to put my phone down, another notification appeared. A message from an unknown number. We need to talk. About Dominic and Sienna. Meet me at Cafe number 23, Wexford Street, Charlotte. I stared at the screen, rereading the words, my pulse picking up. Charlotte. That name wasn't unfamiliar. Dominic's wife. I hadn't given much thought to her before. She was just a presence in the background, a woman I had seen in passing, always composed, always polished. But now, she was reaching out to me. And if she had something to say, I knew it wasn't going to be good. I had no idea what I was about to walk into. For all I knew, this could be a trap, another twisted move in whatever game Sienna and Dominic were playing. Or maybe Charlotte wanted to warn me, to use me, to drag me deeper into something I wasn't prepared for. But for the first time since this entire mess began, I didn't feel the urge to run. No more avoiding. No more silence. No more letting them control the narrative. I grabbed my jacket, slipped my phone into my pocket, and headed for the door. Whatever was waiting for me at that cafe, I was ready to face it. It was quiet when I arrived. A small place tucked between brick buildings, the kind of spot you wouldn't notice unless you were looking for it. The air inside was thick with the scent of roasted coffee, but I barely noticed. Charlotte was already there, sitting by the window, dressed in a sleek black coat, her fingers wrapped around a cup of untouched coffee. She looked exactly as I remembered, composed, elegant, the kind of woman who never let her emotions slip too easily. Her eyes met mine as I approached, sharp and assessing. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. Sit. I did. For a few moments neither of us spoke. Then, she leaned forward slightly, her voice low but steady. You already know Dominic has been sleeping with Sienna. A pause. But that's not the real story. She reached into her purse and pulled out a thin folder, sliding it across the table toward me. I hesitated before flipping it open. Inside were emails, messages, financial records, all with Dominic's name attached. Dominic doesn't just have affairs, Ethan. He uses them. Leverages them. Her gaze was unwavering. Sienna isn't the first. And if you don't do something, she won't be the last. I frowned, scanning the documents. Some of the emails were between Dominic and other women, employees, interns, all discussing special opportunities in exchange for personal favors. He finds women he can manipulate. Charlotte continued. Women who are ambitious but naive. He convinces them they need him. That he can give them power, connections. And once he has them under his control, he uses them to get rid of anyone who stands in his way. I swallowed hard, feeling my stomach turn. Sienna wasn't just having an affair. She was a pawn. And worse, she was helping him destroy other people in the process. Charlotte tapped a manicured nail against the folder, her expression unwavering. I've been gathering evidence for months, she said. Emails, financial reports, text messages, all of it. I flipped through the pages, my stomach tightening. The proof was damning. Dominic wasn't just having affairs, he was using them as leverage. Promotions in exchange for silence, careers destroyed when loyalty wavered. This should be enough to ruin him, I muttered, looking up at her. Charlotte shook her head. It's not enough to bring him down publicly. Not yet. She leaned in, voice dropping lower. He's careful. Manipulative. If I don't play this right, he'll twist the story, and I'll be the one who looks like the bitter, vengeful wife. She exhaled, fingers tightening around her cup. I need a final move. Something undeniable. Something that will make sure Dominic and Sienna have nowhere to run. Her eyes met mine, sharp and calculating. And that's where you come in. I frowned, flipping through the documents again. Names. Dates. Transactions. And then, one in particular caught my eye. Daniel Carter. I didn't know him personally, but the name rang a bell. He used to work at the company, bright, ambitious, well-liked. And then, one day, he was just gone. No explanation. No farewell email. Just disappeared. I glanced up at Charlotte. Daniel, What happened to him? Her lips pressed into a thin line. He got too close to the truth. She took a slow sip of her coffee before continuing. Daniel was one of Dominic's rising stars. Smart, talented. But he started noticing things. How promotions didn't always go to the most deserving, how certain people were being pushed out while others were mysteriously fast-tracked. And then he noticed Sienna. The weight of those words settled between us. He confronted her about it. Told her he knew she was involved in something shady with Dominic. Charlotte's fingers tightened around her cup. A week later, HR launched an internal investigation against Daniel for creating a hostile work environment. I exhaled sharply. They set him up. Charlotte nodded. Dominic fed Sienna a script, and she played the perfect victim. Claimed Daniel was obsessed with her. That he was spreading rumors because she rejected him. They buried him under false complaints, ruined his reputation. He left town after that. I heard he had a breakdown. I clenched my jaw, the reality settling in. Daniel wasn't just a casualty. He was a warning. And now, they were trying to do the same thing to me. Charlotte leaned forward, her voice measured but firm. We have one shot at this, Ethan. And it has to be public. I already knew where this was going. The annual company gala. A high-profile event where board members, investors, and senior executives all gathered in the same room, where reputations were made and destroyed in real time. I let out a slow breath. You want to take them down at the party? She nodded. Dominic thrives on control. He manipulates people behind closed doors, where he can rewrite the narrative before anyone questions him. But if we expose them, where the entire company is watching, he won't have time to spin it. It was risky. Revealing everything in front of the wrong people could backfire. But it was also the perfect stage. Charlotte slid another folder across the table. I've already planned my move. Emails. Recordings. Proof of every deal he made, every career he destroyed. She tapped the folder. All we need now is the final push. A moment that forces him into the open. I glanced at the documents, then back at her. I thought about Daniel. About the lies. About how they tried to ruin me the same way. I thought about Sienna's smirk when she admitted what she had done. The messages from friends who had already written me off. Enough. I reached for the folder. Let's end this. This time, I wouldn't walk away in silence. I had spent too long being the fool, the one who trusted too easily, the one who let people dictate the story while I stood on the sidelines. Not anymore. This wasn't just about Sienna. This was bigger. Dominic had built his empire on manipulation and destruction, and Sienna had become his willing accomplice. They had played their game for years, ruining lives without consequence. But now, the game was about to change. I clenched my jaw, gripping the folder tighter. They thought they had already won. That I would disappear like Daniel. That I would let them rewrite the truth. They were wrong. This time, I was the one writing the ending. The ballroom was alive with the hum of conversation, glasses clinking, and the soft murmur of music in the background. The air smelled of expensive champagne and polished deception, the perfect setting for a reckoning. I walked in, dressed sharper than I had in months, my posture relaxed, my expression unreadable. If they were expecting me to show up broken, humiliated, or enraged, they were in for a disappointment. Eyes turned as I made my way through the crowd, subtle whispers trailing behind me. They all knew. Or at least, they thought they did. Then I saw them. Sienna stood beside Dominic, her arm lightly resting on his, the perfect image of a power couple. She wore a sleek, form-fitting dress, probably one of the new ones she never wore around me. She was glowing. Confident. Smirking. She thought she had won. Dominic, on the other hand, barely spared me a glance, too wrapped up in shaking hands and fake laughter, his confidence unwavering. A man who believed he was untouchable. I picked up a champagne flute from a passing waiter, turning toward them at just the right moment. Calm. Collected. Amused. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, I raised my glass slightly in their direction. To success, I said, my voice smooth, steady. To getting exactly what we deserve. Sienna's smirk faltered. For the first time that night, Dominic actually looked at me. The room was alive with laughter and conversation, glasses clinking as executives and employees mingled, unaware of what was about to happen. That was about to change. Across the ballroom, Charlotte made her move. A sharp tap echoed from the microphone as she stepped onto the stage, commanding attention with nothing but her presence. The massive projector screen behind her flickered to life. Ladies and gentlemen, she began smoothly, her voice carrying over the crowd. Before we continue celebrating this wonderful evening, I believe it's only fitting to acknowledge some remarkable achievements. Sienna, still standing beside Dominic, straightened slightly. Dominic barely reacted, sipping his drink, his confidence unshaken. He had no idea what was coming. Then, the first email appeared on the screen. It was from Dominic's company account, addressed to a female employee, laced with thinly veiled coercion. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some chuckled uncomfortably, assuming it was a joke. And then, a second email appeared. Then another. And another. One by one, they built a story of power, manipulation, and abuse. Promotions offered in exchange for silence. Careers threatened. Names. Dates. Receipts. The laughter faded. Eyes darted toward Dominic. Whispers turned into gasps. Then, the video played. Security footage from the company parking garage, a grainy but unmistakable clip of Dominic and Sienna, their conversation incriminating even without sound. But Charlotte had the audio. Dominic's voice, cold and measured. "As long as you do what I say, you'll be untouchable. And if anyone gets in the way, we make them disappear." The room fell silent. Sienna's smirk vanished. Dominic's face strained of color. For the first time, they were the ones trapped. Sienna's breath hitched as the final clip ended. The weight of the silence in the room was crushing. Dozens of eyes were on her. On Dominic. Watching. Judging. She stepped forward, her voice shrill with panic. "This is taken out of context. You don't understand." No one was listening. A few people in the crowd whispered to each other. Others muttered under their breath. But most just stared, their expressions shifting from curiosity to disgust. Even Jonah and Lena, who had been standing near the back, looked horrified. Jonah turned to Lena, his voice barely above a whisper. "What the hell did we just defend?" Lena's face was pale. I didn't know. I thought." She trailed off, her eyes darting between Sienna and the screen. Realization hit like a freight train. They had chosen their side weeks ago. Stood by Sienna, excused her choices, told me I needed to learn a lesson. Now, they were realizing too late that the only lesson here was their own. Sienna, still reeling, turned wildly, searching for an ally. Dominic? Jonah? Lena? But no one, not a single person, was willing to stand beside her. She was alone. Dominic stood frozen, his jaw clenched so tightly it looked like it might snap. For the first time, the man who always had control, always dictated the game, had nothing to say. The weight of the evidence had rendered him speechless, and for a man like Dominic, silence was the ultimate defeat. And then came the final blow. Charlotte stepped forward, calm and composed, holding a crisp white envelope in her manicured fingers. "Oh, and one more thing." She extended the envelope toward him, her voice smooth, almost sweet. "Your copy of the divorce papers." The room went deathly quiet. Dominic's face twitched. His eyes darted to the papers, then back to Charlotte, as if he could still salvage something from this disaster. He couldn't. Charlotte let the envelope fall, landing on the floor between them. She didn't even care enough to hand it to him properly. Then she smiled, a small, satisfied smile that oozed victory. "Enjoy your future, Dominic." She glanced at Sienna, who stood trembling beside him. "With whatever's left of it." The humiliation was absolute. Dominic lost his power, his reputation, his marriage. And standing beside him, Sienna lost everything too. No job. No support. No control over the narrative. No one left to believe her lies. I stood there, watching it all unfold, not saying a word. And then I smiled. The fallout was immediate. Dominic was finished. Within 48 hours, the company forced his resignation, issuing a carefully worded statement about maintaining ethical leadership. But that was just the beginning. Charlotte had been holding back the real damage. Days later, reports surfaced: financial audits, misallocated funds, falsified expense reports. Dominic hadn't just been manipulating people, he had been manipulating money. The board launched an internal investigation. Then came the lawsuits. Employees stepping forward. Ex-staff speaking up. One after another, a wave of testimonies confirmed what Charlotte had laid bare at the gala. Dominic wasn't just disgraced. He was ruined. And Sienna? She tried to fight back at first, posting vague messages about betrayal, attempting to twist the story in her favor. But this time, no one listened. Her followers dropped. Her carefully curated image shattered. By the end of the week, her social media was gone. Deleted. Vanished. Like she had never existed. I heard through the grapevine that she lost her job too. That nobody wanted to be associated with her, that she had become a cautionary tale. For so long, she thought she was untouchable. Now, she was just gone. A few days after the dust settled, Jonah and Lena finally reached out. At first, it was just a few messages. Then missed calls. Then more messages. Jonah. Man, I messed up. I should have had your back. I didn't know the full story. Lena. Ethan, please. We were wrong. We got caught up in her lies. Can we talk? I stared at my phone, expression unreadable. A few weeks ago, maybe, I would have given them the benefit of the doubt. Would have tried to understand. Would have let them explain why they chose her side, why they stood by and let me be trashed, humiliated, abandoned. But I didn't feel anger anymore. Just clarity. I scrolled back through our chat. Back to the moment when I had asked them the one question that had mattered most. Did you know? And their responses. Cold. Dismissive. Certain. You're a good guy, but Sienna needs someone more established. Maybe this is the lesson you needed. I took a screenshot. Sent it back to both of them. Then, without a word, I blocked them. Some betrayals don't deserve second chances. Starting over felt easier than I expected. Lighter. Not long after the chaos settled, I signed with a new company, a fresh start, free from the shadows Dominic had left behind. They had heard about what happened, about the scandal, but they also knew I wasn't the villain in the story. If anything, my reputation had only strengthened. With my first paycheck, I left the past behind completely. New job. New city. New apartment. The place I moved into was nothing like the one I had shared with Sienna. It was mine. No ghosts of broken trust, no reminders of whispered lies. Just clean, open space, a new foundation. And then there was her. I met someone, not quickly, not recklessly, but when I was ready. Someone who didn't play games, who didn't keep secrets behind guarded smiles. This time I watched. I listened. I didn't rush. Didn't ignore the signs. Because if I had learned anything from all of this, it was this: real love doesn't need manipulation. Doesn't demand sacrifice without giving anything in return. This time, I was building something real. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking back. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to plot or scheme, didn't need to waste another second thinking about them. All I had to do was live well. And the rest? They destroyed themselves. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that some people will betray you, and they won't feel guilty about it. They won't hesitate, won't look back, won't lose sleep over the damage they've done. And when they're finally exposed, when their lies unravel and their world falls apart, they won't apologize. They'll just look for someone else to blame. But revenge? It's never the answer. I used to think justice meant confronting them, making them feel the weight of what they did. But the truth is, nothing I could have done would have hurt them more than what they did to themselves. Sienna lost everything, not because I fought back, but because she built her life on lies, and lies always collapse. Dominic thought he was untouchable, but power gained through manipulation never lasts. Jonah and Lena turned their backs on me, and in the end, they were the ones left behind. I didn't have to destroy them. They did that all on their own. So I walked away. Started fresh. Built a life without ghosts of the past haunting every corner. And in doing so, I realized the greatest truth of all. The best revenge isn't anger. It's indifference. It's success. It's waking up every morning knowing that you survived without them, and they can't say the same. Because people like them? They always end up exactly where they belong.